Drafting is one of the most important parts of DOTA 2, and I'll be focusing more on Captain's Mode, but the same logic can be applied to your pubs as well. So there are different strats you can use when drafting a CM game. You could go in with a pre-made plan, where you just plan out a general strategy before the game, what you plan to pick, what you plan to ban, and it's normally only used in really high stakes game because of the prep times. It's nice when you understand the enemy team well and you understand your team well and you've just done a lot of research. It takes a long time to do, so yeah, that's why it's only used normally as a once-off thing in a knockout bracket or something. And it leads to a smoother and more clinical game because everyone's on the same page on your side. You can't keep using these drafts because the enemy team will eventually learn it after excessive use in various tournaments or scrims. So yeah, example being UB TI4, they just show their death ball strat once, win the tournament with it, never see it again. Another thing you could adopt is a counter pick strategy, where you're always reacting to what your opponents pick. The best example is Wings TI6 or EG at TI7. Wings were the example of the success and EG were the example of the demise. So this requires you to have a deep understanding of the meta as well as your players. Your team needs to really have a big hero pool if you want to pull the strategy off properly. And that's what Wings had. Wings really understood what was going on, and they had the biggest hero pool. They just picked everything. And they did it properly. They just drafted really well and no one could stop them. But EG, they counterpicked, but they went too heavy into the counterpick. And they'd counterpick and end up with really weird matchups like mid Earthshakers, mid Sand Kings, position 5 pucks. Just for the sake of counterpick, they'd pick the puck in the first phase, and if their puck isn't a good pick, they'll just send it to the support, and then counter the enemy with a new offlane hero, like Beastmaster or something, which isn't really good. That's really playing yourself into a hole. The draft style I prefer is like a flexi draft. It offers the best of both worlds, where you prepare some picks and bans. So if you know you want to run a certain hero like Naga Siren plus whatever, then you prepare that and then you ban heroes that are good against that. And you just change the rest of your picks depending on what the enemy drafts, so you counter the rest. It's better to not have your game-winning player as part of the combos. So you can identify the player on your team that wins the game and then you last pick their hero. You really pick up your combos to enable that player, and that's how you win the game with the style. Now, there is another one that's sort of like counterpicking, but it's not really based on the heroes and more of the ideas the opponents have. So this tactic requires you to have a solid understanding of hero power spikes and core matchups. And if the enemy team picks up something like an anti-mage, you know you should probably pick up a Drow Ranger or a Lycan, just so you can pressure them and end fast before the anti-mage can even do anything. This doesn't really counter the hero directly, but it counters the way the enemy team wants to play the game. It's sort of like a rock, paper, scissors matchup where early aggression beats late game strats because heroes take too long to come online and can't deal with the early aggro. Mid game power spike strats beat early strats because they're generally strong enough to defend against them, but it is time to go high ground. And an early strat really just loses if it just stops its steamroll. Once the steam engine stops, it never starts up again. Late game strats also tend to beat the mid games because they're just given the space in the early stages of the game, and because they're not constantly pressured, they get up a core item or two and are able to just turtle and stall out the game, at which stage they outscale the enemy team. This isn't absolute, and you do see rock beating paper sometimes. It just depends on how the strategy is executed. Like a well-thrown rock will break through a paper, if you know what I mean by that. Okay, so what does your draft need? You need at least one form of hard initiation in your team. It doesn't matter what the draft is, you definitely need one form of hard initiation. By that I mean a hero that can always initiate instantly from anywhere regardless of its position. Not anywhere on the map, but anywhere in the area. Like, at any time the enemy is in range of you, you're always able to, like, anytime a fight breaks out, this hero is with your team, you can always just initiate on them. An example being like a Bat Rider who can always just blink lasso someone reliably. There's no counterplay. They just blink lasso and they have to react to the person who's currently being lassoed. So after the initiation's off, now they have to react. That's what I define as hard initiation. Then a soft initiator would be like Avenge, Burrow or something, or Shadow Shaman, who initiates, but it really depends on... Actually, not so much Shadow Shaman, because... Shadow Shaman, yeah, not so much. But Avenge, Burrow, they initiate, but it's not confirmed. Like, it depends on their position, they have to get close to the enemy, they have to cast their spells on them, connect the things, whatever. It's not so much a confirmed initiation all the time. However, Earthshaker is also a soft initiator because his Fisher's not a reliable initiation, but with the Blink Dagger he becomes a hard initiator because his Blink Echo is definitely very reliable. Your soft initiator should definitely be making space for your hard initiator to get his Blink Dagger up and running by just initiating all the engagements during the early parts of the game. In all good drafts, you're going to need at least one hero that seals the game. Actually, no, sorry. You're going to need one hero that seals the game. I don't think it's good to run more than one, because you don't want to be too greedy. But yeah, you run one hero that seals the game, and you need to have a plan on how you're going to be able to get that hero to the stage where he wins you the game. You're going to need to be able to know how to take the towers, and more importantly, take high ground. You're going to need, most of the time, you're going to need Roshan before you take high ground. And that means you're also going to need a way of taking Rosh quickly, so if you don't have heroes that naturally take Rosh fast, like Ursa, then you're going to need to pick up items like Desolator, Medallion, that help you take Rosh. In short, you're just going to need heroes that efficiently deal with objectives. You'll also need to pick up another core that makes space for your game-winning +1. So it can be like a gyro carry that makes space for a TA, or a mid-quap that makes space for your anti-mage. Whatever, it doesn't really matter, as long as one core makes space for the other, and you keep things fair like that, so they can't compete with farm for each other. They can't compete with each other for farm, yeah. So you don't want your damage to also be completely counted. But remember that physical damage does scale better into the late game than magic, so just remember, normally pick up more physical damage. It's better if ever in doubt. It's just better to have more physical than magic if you are going for like a mid-game or late game strat. But if you're going early game, you're still going to want a bit of physical, unless your magical consists of like a Pugna or Jakiro that's going to take the towers, because even if you're early game strat, you are going to need to take the high ground and the ancient at some point. When you take Roshan, you should always put the Aegis on the most important hero. If you're looking to fight, then put it on a Copper Gyro, something that dishes out damage in fight. But if you are looking to take high ground and towers, which is generally the case after Roshan, then definitely put on the hero that does the most building damage, like Templar Assassin. Some heroes like Storm Spirit or Meepo are among the best Aegis carriers because of what they can do with the second life and how aggressive they can play. But heroes like Terrorblade or DK with transformations are just some of the worst because they can't use their transformation after the... So if they use it before the Aegis is over and they die, they don't come back in the transformed form. It's just gone, so you can play around it, but it's generally not the best idea to put it on them. Sometimes you can. Dota is a game where anything can happen. Always play to your team's strengths, recognize the power spikes and item timings of the team members. If someone plays a lot of anti-mage, they're going to tell you that the best case scenario for the Battle Fury is whatever, and then the worst case is whatever. You just have to understand and then expect the battlefield is going to come between like 18 and 24 minutes, depending on the game plan, and just draft accordingly to that power spike. It's really important for you to figure out what your team enjoys and what their individual play styles are, and just explain to them what their role in the game will be to maximize their play. You can make someone play 100 games with Lycan because it's OP, but if they don't like it, they will never perform as well as they would if you put them on 100 games of Anti-Mage. Although this is referring to personal performance and how optimally they play the hero, but sometimes heroes are just so OP, it doesn't matter if the player is not playing it optimally, it's just so broken that it wins the game anyway, so you shouldn't overlook meta heroes. Try to always pick and ban meta heroes, don't let them just linger around, because they are free wins quite often. When drafting, it's generally a good idea to identify which player on your team will win the game for you, and then just draft around them, like how Liquid drafts around Miracle or Fiji drafts around Paparazzi. Remember to watch pro games and apply the knowledge you know to every game you play. Always have a game plan going into every game. Like, it's too many times I see players just play the game and not think, which I don't understand how they do. When you go into a game, you should always look at the enemy draft, look at your draft, assess what your job is in the first 10 minutes, what you need to accomplish, look at the enemy power spikes with the item timings, what your team's power spikes are, look what the enemy's Roshan taking potential is, look what the enemy's tower taking potential is, look at yours as well, look which enemy heroes can kill you, which you can kill, and just assess all these different things and go into the game with a solid plan on how you're going to win this game. And if you do that every game, I guarantee you that you'll win a lot more, and it's really just going to make your team play and everything just a lot smoother. Never go into any game blind.